Today's guest, Oscar Munoz, was CEO of United Airlines when a crisis unfolded that threatened United's brand, market capitalization, and his own reputation. Oscar went to Good Morning America to explain.
Next to that ABC News exclusive, the CEO of United Airlines speaking out for the first time. Here's our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis.
What did you think when you saw that video of a man being dragged off of one of your planes?
The road to leadership is never a straight line. On this podcast, I'm interviewing the world's most interesting leaders about their mountaintop moments, their stumbling blocks, and everything in between. This is Stumbling Blocks, How Great Leaders Are Made. On April 9, 2017, a passenger was forcibly dragged off of a United Airlines flight at O'Hare Airport. Within hours, the video went viral. It threatened the reputation of an airline that invites passengers to fly the friendly skies. Oscar Munoz was CEO when that crisis hit. His tenure as CEO was a pure trial by fire. He took the helm at United to lead a financial turnaround, which he did, survived a heart attack just 37 days onto the job, a heart transplant 6 months in, and then led through this remarkable crisis. In this conversation, we will go inside Oscar's war room. We'll hear why the crisis standard playbook failed, how United's legal team drafted a disastrous initial apology, and the spiritual moment that convinced Oscar to throw out his script on live TV to save the company's reputation and his own. I've woven real-time news reports from the crisis throughout this interview. As Oscar describes his darkest hours, you will hear the crisis unfolding exactly as the world heard it back then. The first clip you'll hear is the passenger being removed from the plane. Caution, it is disturbing and may not be suitable for younger audiences. Because his conversation is so rich, I'm releasing it in 2 parts. This week, the crisis. Next week, the turnaround. Take a second to follow the show so you don't miss the conclusion next week with Oscar Munoz. I'm Jonathan Block. Welcome to Stumbling Blocks, How Great Leaders Are Made. Oscar, welcome to the Treehouse. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. Nice to see you again.
Likewise. It's great to see you too, and I hope you had a great holiday with your family. Oscar, you were, of course, most recently the CEO of United Airlines and led that company through a dramatic turnaround, both from a financial perspective and also from a cultural perspective. So let's start with that moment. In 2017, a passenger named Dr. David Weil had just been pulled off of a plane at O'Hare. It's a moment that's probably seared in lots of folks' minds.
The chaotic scene unfolding on a United flight in Chicago. ABC's David Curley covers aviation.
It is a stunning scene. That passenger yanked from his row.
Oh my God!
His lip cut, dragged off a United jet for refusing to give up his paid seat.
Oh my God! Look at what you did to him!
United had issued an apology, a written apology, for passengers being re-accommodated. And then you went on Good Morning America. And I wonder if you can take us into that moment in the studio on Good Morning America, where you're being interviewed and the anchor asks you a pretty important question. I'll let you take it from there.
Great. We're jumping right into it. Okay. First of all, I think, this concept of stumbling blocks and getting back on the horse and all of those conversations are always an important one for all of you who are in your careers, and things happen in so many different ways. And a title of one of the chapters in my book about this particular incident that Jonathan mentions, I titled it, "It's Never Too Late to Do the Right Thing." And I thought that was very fitting because the story I'll tell you started off very badly. Jonathan was very kind to say, pulled off an aircraft and Good Morning America, and all, they were infinitely more significant. I was globally infamous as that video. We were, United and myself, were the first, and we've confirmed that no one's ever fault. I am officially the first global viral video to have the effect that we have now, right? I mean, we see them all the time.
That's a claim to fame.
No one had any understanding at the time. I mean, United Airlines didn't have a social media team monitoring these sorts of things. I mean, people knew what Twitter was, but it was like so. So that's the environment that we're in. So this thing happens. Now, the first thing that's important, and people will tell you when you face a crisis or an emergency of this up, is, get all your facts straight and all this really process oriented thing. And I think that's a great concept and a good idea to have. My story will tell you how there's nothing you can prepare adequately for something of this magnitude and how quickly it escalates, whether it's social media or not. It's just one of those things that you have as an individual sort of have to be prepared for. And I think that's the purpose of us having this conversation today.
That's
Is
exactly
just
right.
anticipate that something like this could happen. Okay, so to the facts. United Airlines uses several other smaller airlines and they're not subsidiaries, they're just third-party vendors in essence that we outsource some of the flying, some of the short haul flying to get people back and forth to our major hubs.
Essentially
All airlines,
contractors.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
contract. Yeah.
essentially
So, but it's a full
contractors.
airline. It's a full
Yeah.
airline and those airlines do work for us and do work for all the other airlines. And literally, a pilot can fly with 3 different airlines in the course of a month and all those things. But they're all trained on the policies and procedures of each as best as they can. So, the first fact is that this incident, this dragging and beating of a human being, to be very specific, happened on something called United Express. Again, it was one of these third-party vendors. That's only important because their policies and procedures and their rules and the rules we place upon them is, to get flights out on time. So what happened on this unfortunate day is a flight leaving Chicago O'Hare headed for St. Louis was full of customers. Pilots that were destined to pilot an aircraft in St. Louis to move another set of customers had to get to St. Louis. So that's the fact. Unfortunately, the flight is full. So somewhere in the manuals of 800,000 pages of stuff that no one's ever looked at before or reviewed, what do you do in this situation? Well, you need to get the pilots to the other city so that all those other passengers can get, right? It's a law of numbers. We can displace 2 people here to save 137 people. That's the size of a narrow body 37 kind of thing. So, right, perfectly normal. The policy is, oh, well, okay, we got to get some people off. We got to get a couple of people off the aircraft. Simple, right? Until how do you do that? Well, it's vague on how you pick someone and how you don't. Last people. Now everybody's boarded. So this flight's full, ready to go. And it's still unclear what policy they followed and how they picked this individual and his spouse. But it has to do with 100 variables, I suspect. But they get picked. As I would, we're sitting there comfortably on our way. Somebody comes and says, I'm sorry, you have to get off the aircraft because we have to put some other people on.
United Airlines told passengers the flight was overbooked and now says it was a crew transport issue. 4 seats needed to get a crew from Chicago to Louisville. $800 in vouchers offered, no takers. So United's computer picked 4 passengers, including the 69-year-old man who said he was a doctor and had patients to treat. United CEO calls it an upsetting event and apologizes for having to re-accommodate these customers, but no direct apology to the man.
And he answered like I think most people would. It's like, hell no, I don't want to get off. Well, we'll give you compensation. No, I don't want to find somebody else. Well, his response was not great and a bit combative. The next policy says if a passenger gets combative or refuses to do what you've asked him to do, then you get local law enforcement involved, which is how the Chicago police got involved. So again, everybody's trying to get a lot of flights out. Everybody's moving. You've all traveled. You know how this works. So that's the sort of the background. Well, this person not only becomes combative verbally, but when the police show up, he becomes combative physically. Now, if you're the police officer who, again, your role, your job necessarily is, hey, we've got a combative person that needs to get off the aircraft, and he's fighting back. So, if you're an armed police officer, what are you taught to do with someone that resists, in essence, arrest or whatever it might be? You subdue the person, right? So, hence the altercation that you all saw in that graphic and awful, horrific video that you saw. And that's what happened. And of course, in this day and age with everybody taping, it became pretty viral. So that's the situation of what happened. The interesting fact is there was no one person from actual United Airlines involved in any of this. Our gate manager, if you will, stood there and watched the same things we all did. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It was United
Is that
Express.
right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
So
Not
it was United
wow.
Express. It was the Chicago police, not United. But all that comes out, and this is the one great example and rule for you to follow. No one cares about the facts. They saw United Airline and they saw what happened and they attributed it to that. So that's the first issue. A night passes. This thing is getting some commotion, and the media is asking about this. The video, again, this is the first viral. The video starts to make the circulation. That starts to get into circulation.
And the video
Um,
only shows the man being dragged off. It
that's
doesn't
it.
show
That's
any
it.
of the
There's
any of
nothing
the
else. United
sort of
Airlines and this person
preceding.
being dragged in the
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Why else would you show anything, right? I mean, if you're trying to get eyeballs, as we now know at the time, and so this begins to trend on Twitter, is what I hear. And again, that phrase, as foreign as it may be to all of you today, wasn't a phrase back then. It just wasn't. That's not an excuse. It just was.
Yeah.
And so here's where it also gets interesting. So we have to respond. Now it's getting to be big, and somebody knows, hey, we have to say something. So the first response from somebody in some back room of United early in the morning just says, we apologize for the inconvenience, or something about our flight being overbooked.
Mhm.
Our flight was full, and in order to get, they try to say that out there. Well, the legal and regulatory people in my company immediately jumped to arms because the concept of overbooking is a regulatory issue. We overbook flights in regular because a lot of you don't show up for your flights. If we didn't overbook, we'd go with a lot of aircrafts being empty. So it's a business decision, but it's also a calculated one.
The overbooking, even demanding a paying customer give up a seat, is perfectly legal.
It's part of a document that nobody ever looks at called the contract of carriage, which gives basically the airlines, the pilot, the flight attendant, all sorts of rights to pretty much do whatever they want.
All right, David Curley with us live tonight. So, David, you reported there it's in the fine print, part of the contract of the ticket when you buy it. So they can make you get off even after you've boarded the plane?
Even after you're on the plane, they do have that. Now, passengers do have rights, David. They are due compensation if they get bumped from a plane.
Every once in a while, you get into these things where it's overbooked. And that's why we ask you, say, hey, we'll offer $100, $200. And if you wait long enough, you'll get a nice bike. Unfortunately, this flight was already fully, the policies and procedures of that other airline that we weren't aware of, boarded that flight, didn't have the pilots. Somebody made a last minute decision, got to get those pilots on. Not United again, not an excuse. It's just what happened. So, unfortunately, what then transpires with us and our response is the legal people say you've got to get that word overbooking out of the equation. You cannot have that out because they're going to use that against us in a world that's much broader and has much more impact. So, how did we come up to the re-accommodated phrase? When you're watching this video, right? So again, the public world sees video, bloody man being, in essence, beaten and dragged. And then you say the CEO saying a word like re-accommodating.
Yeah, it feels like a hell of a euphemism.
That was the flashpoint. If you what were you thinking? Well, I wasn't. It was quick. It happened so quick. We didn't understand the impact of social media and what trending was and how big a play this was going to be. And again, as we're moving around in our various things, with the legal and regulatory people saying, you got to get that word out of, you got to get that verbiage out of there.
Yeah.
Re-accommodated just seemed like a good thing to quickly change the existing post. It wasn't a response yet.
And you can totally see this happening. If you're, sort of heat of the moment, legal's weighing in, PR's weighing in, you probably have your PR firm helping draft it. Somebody says, hey, you didn't realize this, but the term overbooking has legal meaning beyond what you might realize. Let's find another word. Oh, re-accommodate. I mean, you can sort of see it. I can see it happening around a conference room.
Yeah,
table.
no, again, not proper, not excuse, but that's exactly what the process was and why I tell the story this way, because all of you out there listening, this is how
business works. Absolutely.
And you're not thinking about it. So this is some of our best learnings are from our biggest failures, as they say. So, but wait, there's more. So not only do we respond with this word that invariably infuriates people, again, more facts come in. this individual is combative in a lot of his life. His background and history as a medical doctor is not great. There were some things in his past where
His
he
medical
had
license had been suspended at least one point.
for,
Yeah.
in essence, trading drugs for physical activity. And so not a good person, and one prone to litigate and cause this kind of thing. So we know that about this person. We also know that it's not United because we weren't part of this. And so the PR people kind of let out sort of the document that our team puts together that says, here's what happened, right? And it says, hey, this person who happens to do this. So that gets out in the press, and that sounds like we are making the victim, right? We are victimizing the person then, and then we are beginning. So that's what it comes. And again, for all of you out there, we talked about this. All you're seeing is this video, this awful video. You're seeing this word that sounds completely disconnected from reality, from the CEO. And then you have this information trickling out that says, oh, well, this person may have deserved this, right? For lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So the proverbial shit hits the fan in a massive, now it's scaling, it's growing.
And folks are starting to call for your resignation.
No, the whole world is. This is before cancel culture, by the way, also. But it may have been the start of that because everybody gets on board with that. And then there's more because he states that he's Chinese somewhere in the video process. So the entire country of China, who already doesn't like Americans, it becomes important. So their social media system, Weibo, I've heard 500 to 800 million views of the same video with the tagline, here's what America does to Chinese people.
Outrage over a passenger being dragged off an overbooked United flight, catching up with the company's stock today. United down more than 2%, wiping out $500 million of the airline's market value. But could the outrage this has sparked in China become an even bigger problem for the carrier? Phil LeBeau joins us live from the New York Stock Exchange with more. Hi, Phil.
And Tyler, one reason for that outrage in China is because the passenger who was bumped from that flight is a Chinese American. His name is Dr. David Dao. He is a doctor in the Louisville area. We've seen this video. Almost everybody has seen this video around the country. But in China, there are reports of people cutting up their Mileage Plus cards saying, I don't want to fly United anymore. It's the #1 story on Weibo, which is the Twitter of China. And China is critical for United's business, and it has been for years. They've been flying there for more than 30 years. 96 departures per week into China on United. They're way more than American, more than Delta. So the Chinese market has long been a critical one for United. And as you take a look at shares of United, keep this in mind, guys. You may look at this and say, well, look, there's only so many seats. People will continue flying United because they're in certain markets where you got to fly United if you're going to a particular place. But when you're talking about flying to China, those are high profit tickets, and those are people who do have other choices. United's not the only one flying to China, so they want to be careful about how this plays out overseas.
So all of China is like beyond. That's like, we're going to DEFCON something or other already because of this. So it's become a global, almost political issue in addition to all of this. Now,
which is not to mention that China is a super important market for United.
But all of the above, right?
Yeah.
All of the above. But now, we happen to know that he's actually Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese and Chinese do. So all what we're trying to manage is we're also trying to get facts out there. And I know how the Vietnamese and the Chinese don't really see eye to eye. So the Chinese won't care if it was a Vietnamese person is basically the point. So let's get that out there. And so there's a whole string of those things that are going on. And this happened, the event happened on a Sunday. This is all Monday. And it's determined that I have to respond in some way. And so the idea becomes, hey, you need to go on TV because, in America, the ancient Roman Colosseum and all those wonderful things that happen at the Colosseum, we like to use morning TV shows to excoriate and do what you can to, CEOs and watching them under the hot spotlight.
United Airlines passenger being forcibly removed from a flight. The airline, as you know, is under attack, and everyone from the White House to comedians are reacting to how United handled the incident. Now the company's CEO is speaking exclusively to ABC News about what he calls that horrific event that sparked an international firestorm. ABC's Rebecca Jarvis just sat down with him in Chicago. Good morning, Rebecca.
Great spectator sport. It's like, so we decided we're going to go on Good Morning America, and there's all sorts of things. Who's going to interview me and all of this work. And I spend the afternoon on Tuesday, sort of preparing what I'm going to say or how I'm going to answer these questions. So it's all agreed. It's going to go first thing Wednesday morning, and the evening before.
Let me just jump in really fast. So Tuesday afternoon, and again, folks can sort of picture this. You're holed up in a conference room somewhere, maybe either. Who's in the room with you? Who's prepping you?
This is a team from Edelman.
Yep.
My team and another person who brought in for this particular purpose.
A crisis person.
Yeah, crisis person, right.
Yeah.
And
so Edelman being one of the biggest privately held PR firms in the world.
Right. So a lot of voices in the room, not a lot of time. And so I quickly see who the most thoughtful person that I can figure. And I say, okay, everybody, I am going to take this person and I'm going to go somewhere else and we're going to go do this privately because this is just too much stuff, right? What if they ask us? What if they ask this, right? And too many people, and well, you can't say this versus this. So the thing we should have done before responding to the initial sort of Twitter post, well, we're now doing after the fact. So the proverbial horses are out of the gate in the barn and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we are. And with this person, he's giving me a lot of guidance as how to effectively tell the facts of the story that I've just spent 10 minutes, 15 minutes telling you. Do it quickly so that people realize that, oh my gosh, it wasn't really United. Oh, the term wasn't out of context, right? It wasn't re-accommodated, was just changed. All of it. How do we figure all that out in these little 3 seconds? So this person is very good at what they're doing. He's giving me some really good coaching tips. So I go home that evening, again, as you can imagine, the old adage of the buck stops here and all of those things. It's lonely at the top. It's like, now
it had to be the longest night of your life.
So even broader context. So this is 2017. I joined the company in late 2015. We've spent a year with union negotiations, with hedge funds attacking us for proxy, lodging a proxy battle. We've got the company that we just need to revitalize. But we're about a year in and things are going really well. I mean, the company has turned around. The customer sentiment is good. The employee sentiment is even better. So we're beginning to hit our stride. But yet the question still exists. Like, does this guy, me, outside of the industry, does he really understand what he's doing here? And should they not find somebody that has more experience? 2, again, bias exists. And given my heritage, it's ballyhooed that I'm the only Hispanic to ever run a U.S. airline. Well, not everybody sort of celebrates that, right? So there's that issue of heritage and whether or not. So you have all of these broader contextual things holding. And again, why this is important to all of you, we hold on our shoulders a whole set of expectations that sometimes we place on ourselves when we shouldn't, and some that you should be aware. I absolutely felt all of those, right? My name and brand, the name and brand of my company who were turning around, my employees who have absolutely turned around and are behind me, and our customers and our investors who are all I'm going to need for this eventual. So all of this stuff is gone. So nothing ever happens at a good time. This was a really bad time to do all of it. So all of that's waned. I'm going home. Yes, a long night. I wake up sometime in the middle of the night. We haven't talked about her, and we may not get a chance to, but one of the greatest humans in my life was my maternal grandmother, who I spent the first 8 years of my life. This is a person who was not educated, did not have a formal job. She cleaned homes and eventually was a maid at a hotel chain in Las Vegas. So I'm just a salt of the earth person, salt of the earth, because every human ideal or dynamic that we wish we could emulate or be, kindness, forgiving, non-envious, all those things that we want to be. She was actually all of those. I didn't realize who she was and what she was because I was young. But all of you have somebody in your life that I call them latent or dormant values that have just I learned quickly. What I learned from her was that there's a path there and a guidance factor from someone like that. When you get into something like, what do you do? So long night, I get up in the middle of the night, I use the facilities, I come back and I fall to my knees before I get into bed. Not because I'm a pious person necessarily, but as Lincoln said famously, I kneeled and looked up because there was nowhere else to look.
So you're at the very bottom, clear. I mean,
Yeah.
truly at the bottom.
And so I do that. And interestingly, as I did this, and this sounds a little corny, but again, I thought of her. And again, without corny, what would she do? And she would never blame someone. She would never. And so I've just had all these coaching of how to effectively tell this. And I said, oh my God, that's not something I don't think I can do. I didn't know what I was going to say, Jonathan, in the morning when they asked me whatever various questions. I absolutely knew it was not going to be anything they had coached me to say, because from a practical perspective, the horses are out of the barn. It's bad out there. And no matter what spin is going to happen, it's just going to feel like another spin, and it's just going to perpetuate this process. So I knew that practically, but emotionally and viscerally, and from my own sort of how I was raised and principled, I knew I was going to say something I didn't know. So that's the night. Get up early, go to makeup. All the teams are there on both sides. The
producers from ABC and your
they
PR
sent one of
people.
their very famous anchors to do that. I mean, this is spectacle. This is the Coliseum, modern Coliseum. It's like, and they had a ton of viewers that day, right? This was, nobody didn't know that there was a CEO under the hot bright lights going on that morning. So everybody's very nervous. It's very nerve-wracking. Even the newscaster, she's smiling, but she knows she's like going to make her world. If she really gives it to me, so to
This
speak.
could be her Emmy moment or her.
Absolutely. So I know all that, and I'm very, at the time I became very calm. It's like, again, I don't exactly know what it's going to be, but I'm just going to let it play. But I think I know what I'm going to say. So, everything starts, lights go on, my team's behind me, legal, regulatory, PR folks, crisis management folks, right? And their whole production team. She's plugged into the producers. So they're ready to go. Lights go on. And then here we go. Our first question is, what did you think when you first saw this or that? So I said it was horrific. And then I even forget the second question. But what came to me at the moment was, I forget what it was like. How did they let this happen or whatever? I said, first of all, this is my fault. I let the policies and procedures of running an airline get in the way of doing what's right for another human being. And I can promise you that'll never happen again.
Next to that ABC News exclusive, the CEO of United Airlines speaking out for the first time. Here's our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis.
What did you think when you saw that video of a man being dragged off of one of your planes?
Probably the word ashamed comes to mind. This will never happen again on a United Airlines flight. That's my premise and that's my promise.
In the future, if no one voluntarily decides to leave a plane based on the amount of money that United is offering,
We are not going to put a law enforcement official to take them off.
Do you think he's at fault in any way?
No, he can't be. He was a paying passenger sitting on our seat in our aircraft, and no one should be treated that way. Period.
And that is just words from my grandmother, my parents, my family and friends, whatever it was. It's who I am. It's like, a practical side, but also the principled side. It's like, listen, this isn't going anywhere. I just got to take, it's like, as much as it's going to upset people where the facts aren't necessarily there.
You must have heard sort of an audible gasp there from your PR people and your crisis manager.
So I say that, and the two noises that I hear immediately as the audible gasp from my team, like, he's not supposed to say that. And then her earpiece just going crazy with, wait. And then so she's trying to rapidly sort of said, I said, yeah, as I said, I'm taking full responsibility. And this is, again, it's not a recommendation or anything to all of you. It's never too late to do the right thing. The truth is great because, again, I'm telling this story. This is what, almost 10 years later, right? And I know exactly what happened because they're my words. It wasn't something that was scripted for me. And in essence was the facts and what happened. And so saying it outright was, and she had nowhere to go after that because he said he's responsible. He said he's going to fix it. He said it won't happen again. And I can say that 3 or 4 times, but she's running out of juice. And then she got it. They actually cut her off at some point in time. Our PR person said, "Stop. We said this amount of time. You're now stretching. We're getting off live." So they did curtail it, and it was done. And so at the end of the day, several things happened. The news cycle ended quickly. The United CEO admits to making a mistake, hopes to rectify it, announces 10 things they're going to do in the next 30 days for customers. Right. So that's the news cycle. So that kind of gets done.
Today, after first blaming Dr. Dow for the incident, United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz changed his tone in a statement saying, "I deeply apologize to the customer forcibly removed and to all other customers aboard." Munoz is now promising a full investigation with the results by April 30th, saying, "I have committed to our customers and our employees that we are going to fix what's broken so this never happens again." United stock was down as much as 4% today, but when Munoz apologized, it rebounded, closing down just 1%.
The second thing was, in essence, there was a little bit of a backlash internally because it's like, Oscar, why did you take the blame? It wasn't us, right?
Yeah.
There was a very strong, heartfelt situation that said none of that. And then third, over time, it became quickly a business case for a lot of the big business schools of how to really screw up a crisis and now it's evolved, and I've seen all the things how to get out of a really bad response.
How to apologize.
I mean, imagine, right? The truth and apologies matter, and so that was that situation. And I hope that all of you, never get in a situation like that. But it is lonely. Your principles need to come out, and again, whatever situation you're in, you're going to get a lot of advice and counsel. And as CEO, there was nowhere else to go. I mean, no one else is going to offer me advice. And so much was riding on it.
Today, United Airlines reached a settlement with Dr. David Dow, who was violently dragged off a plane in Chicago. The amount is confidential. Dow's lawyer wrote, "Dr. Dow has become the unintended champion for the adoption of changes which will certainly help improve the lives of literally millions of travelers." Don Daler reports changes are coming.
Oh my God. The video of Dr. David Dow being forcibly removed from United Flight 3411 outraged millions and sent the nation's 4th largest airline into a popularity plummet. United CEO Oscar Munoz acknowledged the public relations crisis today and promised changes. The airline announced 10 new customer service policies, including compensating passengers up to $10,000 for taking a later flight, using law enforcement officers only for safety or security issues, and additional employee training.
And so, I went on a global sort of retribution tour, so to speak. Went to China, made sure the Chinese, back to our business there, they could care less by the time. It's like, oh no, he was Vietnamese, right? I mean, I don't say that in a disparagingly.
In a disparaging way, yeah.
It didn't matter to them. I went around to our employees to appreciate the fact that is. And I tell a lot about that story about my grandmother and what drove that, because if anything a human is going to understand from this is your values come from somewhere, and you do have them, and understand them as often as you can, as much as you can, because this, for me, that's when that came out. That middle of the night just crystallizes like, that was my guidance factor. That wasn't any expensive crisis management person or whatever. So that's the way it worked out.
Oscar, there's so much there. I wonder, though, if you could crystallize in just a few words, what are your values? We're going to come back to your grandmother in the next question, but just if you had sort of to list them, what would they be?
There's a lot of leadership traits that I use, but your question's a different one. I think I'm trying to think of the right word. There's a level of genuineness. That's not a word necessarily, that is a very big principle to me. And I learned that from working, and all of you that are out there, you have people that work, people say the right things or write down the right things, or in essence, do the right things in like checkbox mode. It's like, they come in and say, well, Jonathan, I want to hear your feedback, right? And let me know. And they sit there and like glance around while you're trying to say something. There's no meaningful, deep connection. And so that genuineness comes across because trust travels at the speed of transparency. So for me, being genuine in what I do, you may not like what I say, you may not agree with what I say, but you won't disbelieve. You won't say the guy's a piece of crap. He's BSing. He's making stuff up, whatever. You'll say, he means it. And that gets you a hell of a long way towards rebuilding trust, is what I had to do with America, China. You go down the line. And so that being genuine about the things that you do, and then you talk about principles and not blaming others and doing the right thing and all those, yes, but it starts with being kind of this understanding yourself and what drives you. And for me, I don't know that I've ever been asked that question, but it's being genuine is what comes across, because when people listen, it's like, okay, you know what? Thanks for sharing that. And hopefully they take something out of it, because all of us will face something like that one way or the other.
So, Oscar, take us to, you mentioned your grandmother, and you've talked a lot about her in your both in your book and in prior other writings. And can you tell us about her and sort of your formative years?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about her earlier, but
Yeah.
she lost her husband, my grandfather, who I never met, at a fairly early age. Interesting, I used to work in a railroad world. He was a locomotive engineer repair person in Mexico. That's what he did. And asbestosis got him, created cancer, and he died at 43 years old. So my grandmother was single for a long period of time. She had 3 children, my mom being one of them. Uh, Her life in Mexico was not easy. I was born in Mexico as well, to a single mom. I never knew my father. And then my mom left the country to come to America to make her way. My uncle, her older brother, was already here. So it's kind of a quick family dynamic. Uh, I'm born, I stay with my grandmother because my mom needed to come and make like a living, and it was going to be hard with a young infant. So she left. I grew up with my grandmother, and what I remember most, and these are the formative years, um, she didn't have a job. We didn't have a home. We weren't homeless. She worked in a lot of different places, and Latino sort of familia means a lot. So we always had a place to be, place to stay. But we did a lot of traveling, dusty roads, buses, trains, all up and down, sort of the northern part of Mexico. I vaguely remember I was fairly young, but the things you do remember is always having this kind of grizzled, hardworking hand holding you all the time. She was the most supportive, confidence builder, um, and I just watched her like never ever get angry and just work hard and turn the other cheek. And there was nothing ever that was, oh my God, drastic and drama. It was just this steadfast, really incredible work ethic, along with a deeply religious bend that, in essence, for her, God will take care of everything. And I could feel that through her. And it was just a meaningful thing. And to just kind of put a cap on it, in her later days, as I mentioned, she became a maid at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. And I would visit her and her friends, and it was kind of fun. And when she decides to retire, one of her friends calls and says, "Hey, we're gonna have a party, a celebration for her, because she's been here for, I forget the number of years." Uh, and so I said, "Oh, of course I'd love to come." And I traveled to Las Vegas. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, so I traveled over there. I'm expecting 6 or 7 friends, and we're going to go get food somewhere or that. Well, it's a full on celebration. I mean, it is. It is. The ballroom is filled. The suits that I would become later were all there, and I began to hear. And it's often we hear about this stuff posthumously about this incredible person. I mean, the senior people in that corporation, and they ran that hotel. She never missed a day of work. She always took other people's load. She was beloved by everyone, had won Employee of the Year for 3 years. And if you go to the Flamingo Hotel employee room, they have a picture with they have a wall of all the sort of Hall of Famers, and her picture's right there. And so she was like this, this incredible hardworking person. Now, to put all of that in perspective, when she officially retired and her health began to waver a little bit, I went to visit one of her doctors, and her doctor said, "Hey, she can't seem to tell me what kind of pain medication she is for her arthritic condition." And it's like, what arthritic condition? She had fused in essence, her ankle on her left foot to a point where the pain level for that, as the doctor said, would require massive amounts of opioid medication. And we never knew she had the condition. She never complained. As I said, she'd never missed a day of work, and she'd never, and this condition was just so extreme. This is the person whose values and principles and where it comes from. I mean, it's like, and I saw it later in life in that regard. And to think that she kept all of that from all of us, it's just incredible. And, my hardest day at work, my Dr. Dow moment was just a breeze in the park for her thing, given her physical condition and the work that she had to do at her. I mean, she worked till she was 86.
Oh my.
And so it was just wonderful to be there and listen to all of that and hear all these people just wax on about her.
I was reading today something by Arthur Brooks, and he said, if you want your children to have good character, then you should have good character because they're watching what you do. And it's so fascinating to me to hear you talk about her, and then to say that on your darkest night, essentially, she came to you in some sort of spiritual way and helped you through your interview on Good Morning America the next morning.
Yeah, no, it's
incredible. I am always amazed by Oscar's genuineness, as he puts it, his authenticity, and the candor with which he tells that really remarkable story. That's all we have time for this week, but we'll be back next week with the story of what Oscar found when he walked into the role of CEO on day one, what he did about it, and on specific, how he reached a contract with a union that had been in stalemate for 5 years. You don't want to miss it. If you haven't yet, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can catch the second portion of the conversation with Oscar Munoz, CEO of United Airlines. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.